ballyhooey Hollywood. Where any
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of That Movie Show. Mike Wendt and Eddie McCabe taking you through another week of movie talk. And Eddie, this week, I believe it's a most excellent week for movie talk.
It is a most excellent week for movie talk. I love this movie. It is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I'm really glad that we get to talk about this and do a bonus show.
Yeah, that's the thing. We're not only doing Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure this week, but the reason we're doing it is because Bill and Ted Face the Music was released last week. So we're going to be doing a bonus show on that one as well. And I love the reasoning for us sitting here doing Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. And we're actually, I think there wasn't really any good news that came out this week. So we're going to forego all the bullshit and the ballyhoo. And we're just going to get right to
I am going to adjust something on the fly. We didn't talk about this beforehand, but we do have our 30-day movie challenge.
You know what? Thank you for reminding me because I completely forgot to. What is it, day 8?
It's day 8, and it's a film where you liked the soundtrack more is the name of it. And because I have it pulled up, I will talk about my movie, and that was The Greatest Showman starring Hugh Jackman. Yeah, I really love the soundtrack of this movie. The music from top to bottom in The Greatest Showman is fantastic. Just the middle bits where there's acting involved is not the greatest.
So mine, this is one of those ones where you could probably, if you think really hard, you could probably pull a lot of them. And there's a lot of movie soundtracks that I really enjoy that have heavy rotation in my car. But I went with one. I think it's because when I was doing the 30-day challenge, it hit Netflix, and I hadn't seen this movie in forever. Yeah. And it's okay. It's not the greatest. But what it did give us was it came out at a time that it was 1994. The movie is Above the Rim.
Okay.
And it's basically, it's a who's who of Death Row Records artists. It's, Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and all them. Tupac was in the movie. And what it ultimately came out with, the biggest hit of the soundtrack was probably Warren G's Regulate. I mean, it's still, it's one of those songs that, like, I was at, before COVID, I was at Halfway Cafe, and one of the bartenders really seems to love 90s hip hop, and I'm all for it because that was my jam in the 90s. And fucking Warren G's Regulate came on. And it's like, God, I'm still bobbing my head to this song. It is really a good song. So I went with Above the Rim from 1994. What's day? So that was day 8 of our 30-day film challenge.
Day 8.
Day 9 going to be?
Day 9. Let's take a look. I had that up and I lost it. Hold on.
I got it. A film you hate that everyone else likes. Okay. So coming up next week, a film you hate that everyone else likes.
Mine is definitely going to be very controversial. And hint, I have ranted about it on this show before.
All right. There's a big market tease for you. I'm guessing the point of that day is to be controversial.
Yeah.
And when I posted mine, I did get quite a bit of shit for that as well. But you know what? Without further ado, let's get into Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Now, a motion picture so grand, so magnificent, and so vast, it spans 7,000 years.
No way! Yes way!
But it starts with Bill.
I'm Bill S. Preston!
Who was Joan of Arc? And Ted.
Noah's wife? We're in danger of flunking most heinously tomorrow.
A force from the future.
Can we go anywhere we want at any time?
You can do anything you want.
Is putting history at their fingertips.
Let's reach out and touch someone.
They're traveling through time.
How's it going, Royal Ugly Dudes?
Put them in the Iron Maiden.
Excellent!
Execute them.
Bogus. How's it going, dude?
Faites-les jeter au l'air.
And they're making a big impression.
Historical babes.
Now they're home.
Everybody get together, remember who your buddy is.
To trash the 20th century.
We got a live one here.
Keanu Reeves, Alex Winter, Napoleon.
We're from history.
Billy the Kid.
Oh my God.
Joan of Arc. Sigmund Freud.
Tell me about your mother.
You a musician?
Beethoven.
Genghis Khan!
Abraham Lincoln.
Party on, dudes!
Socrates. George Carlin.
We're history.
If you guys are really us, what number are we thinking of? 69, dudes!
Bill and Ted's
Excellent! Excellent!
Excellent Adventure.
Party on, dude.
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure was released February 17th, 1989. It had a budget of $6.5 million. It came back at the box office with $40.5 million. It was written by Chris Matheson and Ed Solomon, directed by Stephen Herek. I'm really trying to... Small print. Sorry, man. Getting old. It stars Keanu Reeves, Alex Winter, and George Carlin. The great George Carlin in this movie. And it's one of those ones. I know you love the movie. Of course, you've raved about Keanu throughout this. You've created the Keanu verse within this show. For me, it was always one of those movies that I saw it as a kid. I saw it in the 80s as a kid, and I'm like, all right, it was a movie. And then I really started to appreciate it like later in life. And I think it's because it's definitely now as you get older, a nostalgia movie for that late 80s, early 90s type of thing.
Right.
I think it didn't hit home for me as a kid because of the California aspect of it. Where basically everybody was Spicoli, apparently.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Every character was basically Jeff Spicoli. But yeah, it's just upon rewatching, it's just such an endearing movie, and I'm so happy that these characters have come back to us. But this is your movie, man. I'm gonna let you go for it.
Right. I absolutely love this movie. You know, there's just a sense of sci-fi fun that I think you end up seeing a movie, like there's like a series of movies that you kind of see that kind of fit this genre. And you either see Ghostbusters, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, or Back to the Future first. Like those are the three movies. And then you tend to have whichever one you see hit first hits the biggest, right? And it just so happens that Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure was the one that I saw first, because I do believe that I would be imprinted with this same love and devotion for Back to the Future had I seen Back to the Future.
That makes complete sense, because that's exactly how I feel. Like Back to the Future is all my jam, and I would say probably followed by Ghostbusters, because I think probably Ghostbusters was a bit more adult. And as a kid in the 80s, I definitely identified with Marty a lot more, especially when Back to the Future 2 hit. Back to the Future 2, I remember seeing that in the theater. That was absolutely my shit. That was like, oh my God, this is the greatest movie ever. Nothing will be better than Back to the Future 2. But of course, that was a kid in whenever that was released, 1989ish or probably. So right around the same time. Right. And I agree 100%.
Yeah, because Ghostbusters, I think, is a little bit of the outlier, but the Back to the Future and Bill and Ted both specifically have the same type of time travel shenanigans, right? Like it's not the same type of like butterfly effect that like some darker sci-fi movies have, like Butterfly Effect, where it's like, oh, we're traveling back in time and we're not, it's super serious, and it's like, oh no, we're having fun with this.
Well, even Back to the Future hit on that on a bit lighter side. Obviously Butterfly Effect took it real fucking dark, but but Back to the Future, I mean, Marty disappearing in the picture and then in real life type of thing. I mean, it had actual. Bill and Ted didn't really have the repercussions of time travel. No, they didn't. They picked up. They showed up. They fucked up shit. They grabbed people. They kidnapped everyone and brought them back. And nobody seemed. The world really didn't change too much.
No, and so it plays fast and loose with its own time travel rules. But again, that's part of why this movie works, right? Is because it doesn't take itself very seriously, and because of that, it's endearing, right? Because if Bill and Ted was serious, you'd get Doctor Who.
Yeah,
that's literally what it is. If Bill and Ted was serious, it's Doctor Who. even down to the phone booth.
Yeah.
So that's what,
starting with the phone booth.
Yeah, starting with the phone booth, ending with the phone booth. It's just they're the same thing. But that's what it is, the absurdity that these two burnout like idiots are going to unite the world, but it all hinges on them passing this project. You know what I mean?
History, an oral presentation in history, which I don't know. Maybe I didn't pay attention enough in school. I don't remember having to do a final exam in front of the whole school.
Yeah, right.
In the auditorium with a full-on light show.
Yeah. Well, you're also the only people that have a full-on light show. Like everybody else just stood in front of that podium.
Again, much like last week when we did Terminator 2, this is a beloved movie that we're going to nitpick the shit out of.
Yeah.
And especially when we get to the finale of this movie, it's very nitpicky. It's like, dude, you just showed up.
Yeah, right.
How did you even, I don't know, where's the light tech? And how did you explain your entire choreography to him in 3 minutes?
Well, that's the funniest part. That's the funniest part about this is that it's all time travel. It's all time travel nonsense because they basically give you the plot points for that without talking about it in the police scene. Where it's just like, all right, after we like, we'll go and like when we're done here, we'll go and then go to the past to get the keys to then put the keys here. And so it's just like, all right, but we'll do the presentation. But after we do the presentation, we'll go back in time to set up all the lights and music.
So what you're saying, So what you're saying is we never actually see all the setup because it happens after the credits.
It happens after the credits, but they do it in the past before the credits.
Right. Sure.
Like again, yeah, it's absurdly stupid. The fact that they can figure out how to communicate with each one of these historical figures,
Yeah. That's a thing.
Because at least in Doctor Who, they, MacGuffin the shit out of the TARDIS, which is their time travel device. That's just like, you can talk to anybody because it masks your voice, and they yada yada through it a little bit. But it's like, you should have just done that with the time machine.
So, I mean, basically what it is they're saying in this movie, Bill and Ted, that basically the power of positive thinking and being excellent to each other.
Yeah, right.
It's the international language, basically.
It is.
Also, much like most movies, everyone speaks English, really.
Yeah, right. Everybody speaks English, especially a movie in the 90s.
Let's not muddy it up with actual languages.
Yeah. Oh, man. But it's so fun. It's so fun
also,
watching.
Everyone loves water parks.
and in Southern California, they have one that's perfectly Napoleon themed.
Oh, of course. It's funny. I don't know if you've seen it, but I just watched yesterday, actually, on HBO Max, Class Action Park, the documentary.
I haven't watched that.
Okay. So it's fun to a point.
Sure.
It's definitely something that if you lived in the New Jersey area in the 90s when this, I think it was the 90s, maybe it was the 70s or 80s, I don't fucking know. But when this park was a thing, you'll have those nostalgic feels for it. Even if you didn't go to it and you heard of it, it's kind of cool. But then it's like the back half hour is all about all the people's that actually died, like their families are in it. It's also it should have been a 30-minute documentary. It's an hour and a half, and it feels like 4 hours. It's like
that's tough.
I sat there and I'm like, all right, I'm definitely doing other things while I'm watching. Like this part, I don't really care about. We get it, But
right.
It's fun. When I was rewatching Bill and Ted today, and they had Napoleon going down the water slide, I felt very much like that documentary. It's just this was much more fun and people didn't die in it. So
yeah,
there's that side of it. But actually, Johnny Knoxville did a movie maybe 2 or 3 years ago based on that park. I think the movie was called Action Point, I think.
Yeah, it was.
Him
it was
and
based off of that. Yeah. The problem that I had with that movie was it didn't have, like, it was like Bad Grandpa, and I didn't like Bad Grandpa.
I liked Action Point better than Bad Grandpa. I liked Netflix released Bad Grandpa 0.50 or 2.5. Basically, it was the stuff you wanted Bad Grandpa to be. It was the Jackass stuff.
Right.
It was basically like, So Bad Grandpa, Knoxville tried to do like he tried to make a movie. He tried to have a story and a plot, and it was a road movie with a grandfather and a grandson. And this .50 thing, or whatever the fuck it was,
just
this
eliminates that.
It was Borat, and that's what we wanted it to be. It was Knoxville dressed as an old man walking into a biker bar doing Borat shit and getting his ass whipped. It's like, that's the movie I wanted. That's the movie I paid money to go see.
Right,
You know?
and that's the thing where it was just like I had no interest in Action Point because I thought it was going to be Bad Grandpa again, and it was just like, oh, I would have rather have seen you just do a movie about this.
It was, and I wasn't interested in it, mostly because of Bad Grandpa. We'll get back to Bill and Ted in a minute. Mostly because of Bad Grandpa, I had no interest.
This is one of those movie reviews where we love the movie, so there's not much to talk about. It's also like an hour long. It's not
it's not a long movie. But yeah, so because of Bad Grandpa, when Action Point came out, and it was sold, the trailer was sold very much on the Jackass stuff because it had Pontius in it, and they were doing the stunt stuff, and it's like the whole trailer was just Knoxville and Pontius getting thrown about and getting kicked in the nuts and stuff. It's like, all right. It's a little sad when they're at their age and they're still doing this stuff. I don't really want to see that, and I didn't like Bad Grandpa, at least not the one that they released, the real movie.
Theaters, right.
But then when HBO Max released the trailer for the documentary, I'm like, didn't Knoxville do a movie about that? And I went back and I found it on Amazon Prime and I watched it. And as far as a quarantine watch, not bad. It's an hour and a half. It's better than Bad Grandpa. It's not gonna. You're not gonna be like, you have to watch action. It's like, all right, if you want to have something to sit and watch with dinner one night,
sure,
it's not bad.
Yeah, okay.
It's not bad. Like I said, it's better than Bad Grandpa, but it's just okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, that the water park scene, just because it was so fresh in my mind, really made me think of that. So we start off in 2688.
Yes,
It's a very.
This is one of the few.
Describe it. How would you describe the future?
It's stained glassed.
Yes.
But this is also one of the only sci-fi movies that it's like this and Blade Runner were the only ones that when they put a date far enough in advance to future proof the movie.
We'll never see it.
Yeah.
We will have to live 600 and change years to see this future.
Right.
I mean, hope.
Yeah, right. Cool.
Here's to healthy living.
Yeah. First of all, something's gone horribly wrong, and we live in some sort of RoboCop future, or like that terrible movie with Johnny Depp where I've uploaded my consciousness to a thumb drive. Oh, maybe it's the Altered Carbon future where we're all on thumb drives and we're just swapping bodies.
What's
maybe
the Johnny Depp one? I'm blanking on that.
It's the really bad one where he dies and they build it as like a horror movie, but it wasn't a horror movie at all. He dies and he becomes like a supercomputer consciousness or something like that.
Yeah, blanking on that one.
Yeah.
Probably for a reason.
Yeah. It was.
Watching it back, I kind of, it felt to me like, because it's very minimalist, for lack of a better term, the year 2688. And I mean, it starts with George Carlin just looking into the camera and blackness. There's nothing. So it's almost like, I mean, like you said, they set it far enough in the future that none of us will ever see whether it comes to reality or not. It's not like Demolition Man 1997 or some shit.
Or the funny one was I watched a thing on Escape from New York, and they were like, in the very distant future of 1996.
We just did The Running Man. That was 2019.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Fucking Back to the Future was 2000. We talked about that. Back to the Future 2 was 2015. We don't have hoverboards and cars can't fly.
But the Cubs did win the World Series.
God bless them. But it almost feels like the filmmakers didn't want to commit to any future.
Right.
So they did nothing.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, dude, we're going to give... He basically was wearing Jim Brown's wig from The Running Man. So I don't know if you noticed the dude sitting there with like the white mohawk afro thing.
Yes.
And it's like, all right, so we're going to put you in like monotone colors, not a lot of set dressing. You'll be on some kind of like high pedestal throne. And then just, a couple of glass windows and a hologram of Bill and Ted slowly strumming their guitar in trench coats, which never happened.
Yeah, right.
The whole why they were wearing trench coats kind of confused me.
Especially after you see 3, and it's
Right.
just like, this was never them.
No.
So, but it's, it gets a little bit more fleshed out. I think that, when you're making
3 definitely fleshes the future out a hell of a lot more. It's basically Star Wars.
Yeah, which is definitely done on purpose. But you look at this movie, and I don't think that they thought that this movie would stand the test of time the way it has.
No, they definitely didn't expect 30 years later for you and I to be sitting here analyzing their future.
Right, because it's like you look at everything about this movie, and it just feels small. Like, it feels like they didn't put a ton of money behind it. It was supposed to be an Alex Winter vehicle. Like, you could clearly tell that they tried to make him the heartthrob. Who would have guessed that the handsomest man ever would also be in this movie? And it's Keanu.
Not Dalton.
No, it's not Dalton. It's Keanu.
It's Keanu.
Who is perfect.
It's funny because talking about Alex Winter for a minute, because he's one of those. And we'll get into it more in our bonus episode, Bill and Ted Face the Music, which I'm guessing as I'm sitting here speaking live, I think I'm going to drop tomorrow. So if you're watching this live on our Facebook, day after. You'll get the Face the Music tomorrow. So we'll do 2 days in a row of that movie show, all Bill and Ted. But for now, because we've gotten a number of these revival sequels, basically, or legacy sequels. And I definitely, again, I watched both the first one and the third one just for time's sake. I couldn't fit the second one in this morning, before we recorded. And I'm watching it, and I'm like, first of all, I love these more than reboots. Yes. I don't need a reboot or a remake or what Disney's doing with live action or none of that stuff. Like we covered the original Lion King, but most of it was shitting on the new one. It's like, why does it take 7 writers to copy and paste on a script? I'm sorry, it doesn't. Give me a new story. You can take these characters and I'm watching. I'm like, this is nice. You know what I mean? It's like you're kind of rebooting it. Yeah, but you're also telling a new story. You're not just going back and copying and pasting, even though there's callbacks and references. Of course, there has to be. It is what it is. The
entire subplot of Bill and Ted's Kids is essentially retelling this movie. Like that's they were able to reboot Bill and Ted with 2 new people.
And again, I can't wait to talk about both of them. In the next show. But I'm watching it and I'm like, Alex Winter. It's like I felt the same thing. And again, I've been saying this for 2 fucking years. Welcome to the Cobra Kai party, everybody. I'm glad Netflix uploaded it. Yeah, sure. But with Billy Zabka and Alex Winter, it's like these 2 are fantastic actors. Yeah. Why have they not have huge careers for the last 30 fucking years? And I understand that Alex Winter's been doing documentaries and he's been working. Same with Zabka, and they both directors. But it's like they're fucking killing it in these roles.
Yeah, because Alex Winter goes on to, it was either before or after, but he's in Lost Boys. Yeah, and it's like
he was a star in this era.
Right. He was great. And you could clearly tell in the way that he was supposed to be like the heartthrob in this movie. He's wearing a half shirt 90% of this movie.
I mean, if you got abs, it was in style back then.
Yeah.
Shit, I had a half shirt back then.
Oh, I'm not shitting on it. I'm just saying that, like, compared to the very, very handsome Keanu Reeves, he was dressed head to toe in like layers. Like Keanu had a vest, for Christ's sake.
I mean, you also look no further than just the name of the movie. It's Bill and Ted. Not Ted and Bill, or Keanu wasn't cast as Bill. The funny thing was that the casting process was interesting in this as well. And I know earlier in the week I sent you a link to the that there was actually a Bill and Ted TV show. It was actually filmed.
I remember the
8 episodes, and I remember the cartoon, and I watched the video I sent you, and how it's like basically the live action TV show and the cartoon were going on at the same time,
right?
And they were around the time of the second movie, and the studio had them basically shelf the live action TV show so it wouldn't interfere with the movie. And the cartoon originally had the actual Keanu, Alex Winter, George Carlin voicing it, and then they later switched them out with the TV actors voicing it. Long story short, while watching all this shit on YouTube, I went down a Bill and Ted vortex, and
Amazing.
I found some of their audition footage. And they had Alex Winter and Keanu audition first, and then they split them up. And they were auditioning them with, every who's who that you're like, oh shit, he auditioned? But it's like back then they were just working actors in Hollywood in the 80s.
Right.
You had the Sean Penns and the Eric Stoltzes and all that stuff that seemed to go on every audition.
Yeah,
basically
right.
the cast of Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Well, it's like we've also talked about this before. You walk into an audition, and it's everybody that looks like you. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. In Hollywood at that time, you're all auditioning for the same thing. Yeah, I would be more shocked to find out that Sean Penn didn't audition for this movie.
Because basically they were Spicoli,
right?
as I mentioned earlier. But the funniest part was, it was one of the writers. I want to say it was Ed Solomon that was doing an interview, and he said that him and his writing partner there, Chris Matheson, they created these characters in college. They were basically an improv comedy group in college.
Okay.
And they were doing Bill and Ted on stage, basically a version of Bill and Ted.
Right.
And then they wrote it as kind of like. They wrote the original movie as more of like a sketch movie, like Kentucky Fried Movie type of thing.
Okay.
Where it's just like these two, basically what the movie is, just without the through line. It's like these two get into adventures and go time travel. They didn't they didn't have the history project that had to carry them through the whole movie.
Right.
But they were in line.
That makes more sense now.
It would be more fun. It could have had a longevity to it too, but brought it into the current day of anthology TV. But that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
But the two of them, Ed Solomon and Chris Matheson, were at a McDonald's on the day of casting, and they were standing in line. They had seen a bunch of actors, and they weren't really happy with any of them. And they're bullshitting and bullshitting and bullshitting. And they hadn't gone through Alex Winter and Keanu yet. And they're staying in line, and they're like, they're not clicking. Because the characters, Bill and Ted, need to have chemistry.
They need to be best friends.
You need to believe that these two are best friends. And they were standing behind these two guys in line at McDonald's, and these two guys are just bullshitting and chatting and motor mouths. Cut to those two guys were Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves, and they later saw them that day in the casting room.
That's amazing.
And I'm like, that is like one of those Hollywood stories that you would never hear anymore because everybody's sitting there going like this.
Yeah, right.
Nobody fucking talks anymore.
I know.
And more importantly, nobody listens anymore. So,
and more importantly than that, nobody goes to McDonald's anymore.
Oh, I love me a once a year late night Big Mac.
Yeah, right.
But anywho, Film Historians, we got to get that going.
Yes, we do. We got the Twitter handle.
That's all we need these days. But yeah, so that's how they came to be. I mean, they weren't cast because they were in line at McDonald's, but it was that one of those chemistries, yeah, that they later were in a room together, and they were like, holy shit, those are the two guys we saw at fucking McDonald's that we loved. And it's like, and they're here, and they're these guys, because they weren't, like I said, Alex Winter was the star.
Yeah, right.
It wasn't Keanu Reeves back then. It's just like he was just a working actor.
Right. This is even before all of the Keanu Reeves stuff. Like, you think about like Point Break and Speed, like those haven't happened yet.
Well, it's funny because for years and years in interviews, Keanu Reeves would always say that his epitaph would be, "Here lies Keanu Reeves. He played Ted." But because he was for years, he was Ted, and it's almost like it's got to be kind of frightening for an actor like that to really be so connected, because even I mean, shit, man, he got to the Matrix and he was still doing whoa. Like, I mean, he was he was Ted, and I've never met Keanu Reeves. I've never talked to Keanu Reeves. I don't know if he is Ted or not. You know what I mean? It's like he might be this fucking guy because that's the roles he was getting. Like, I always look to what's the Steve Martin movie he was in, Parenthood. Big ensemble cast of who's in that movie, and Keanu was in it, and he was basically like a grown-up Ted. He was an older version of Ted. And you see movies that he would do, and he's a little older version of Ted each time. And then, of course, John Wick happens, and all bets are off. And also, but even, I mean, you brought up Point Break. Even Johnny Utah was a little Ted.
Oh, yeah.
See today. It's like he was that California surfer guy.
Right. And it's really tough because, everybody wants to immediately shit on pre-John Wick. Pre-John Wick, everybody wanted to shit on Keanu Reeves for being this terrible actor. And it's like, no, he's excellent. No pun intended. But he's excellent at the roles he's excellent at. And I know that sounds insane, but it's just like you put him in this role where it's like, yeah, California surfer dude, he excels at, right? Which is weird because he's Canadian.
Right.
So there's that. So I highly doubt that he actually speaks like that at all, which he doesn't, because you hear him in John Wick and he doesn't talk like a surfer at all. But, you put him in those California surfer roles, he excels at that. And then, you look at roles like Shane Falco in The Replacements,
right,
where he doesn't play a California surfer guy in that, and so he's very good at that. But then you ask him to, be in Interview with a Vampire, and it's just like, oh, you're terrible at this because who asked you to do an English accent circa San Diego? Like, for Christ's sake, what are you doing?
That's the problem with acting being a job. Right. Because, people always look at it like, oh, why would he take that? Oh, because he needed a paycheck, man. Yeah,
money.
And it's like, oh, this is a Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt vehicle? Like, yes, I'm fucking signing on. No, who was the director?
Empire. No, he was in...
Oh, no, even worse. I'm sorry. Do you not want me to go work with Francis Ford fucking Coppola? Are you kidding me? Really? Right. Bram Stoker's Dracula?
Yeah.
No. How? And plus,
Gary Oldman,
Winona Ryder was in it. It's like, it was a fucking, that was a major movie at the time. Again, one of those lost things that people don't remember when they think about, horror movies and vampires and stuff like that.
Exactly. It's the right tool for the right job, where it's just like, I could be the best electrician in the world, but if you ask me to fix your sink, like, that's, I mean,
I'll take the couple $100, especially these days, but I'm going to probably break your shit.
But it's just like, technically we're both in trades. You know what I mean? Like, but they are very different things. And it's the same thing with acting, where it's like, it's the right tool for the right job. I wouldn't cast Johnny Depp in a MCU movie. It doesn't mean that Johnny Depp is a bad actor. That might be
you say that, but maybe.
But maybe they'd figure out something weird to make him. He'd be some weird alien in one of the Guardian movies, and it'd be fine.
I think he's in talks to be a villain in one of the next phases.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I read something like I think Downey's trying to get him work in that because of, they're very close friends, and like Johnny Depp's going through some shit right now, so it's like. I think Robert Downey, like a lot of interviews, Robert Downey Jr. is because people have asked, like, "Oh, you're friends with Johnny Depp, and he's going through some shit right now." And he's like, I think in one or two of them, he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna get him in the MCU." Like, he could have just been blowing smoke up his ass, but it's Downey, so he could fucking do it.
Probably. Well, because they would figure out a way to bring Robert Downey Jr. back from the dead if he was like, "I'll sign on for 5 more Marvel movies."
Sure. Yeah. I mean, multiverse is a thing.
And Tony Stark will be back in the MCU tomorrow.
And it's not like he'd be asking to get his plumber a fucking job. He's asking to get Johnny Depp, one of the best character actors ever, a job. Okay, sure. Where do we sign up?
But it's the same.
As long as all his personal shit gets worked out, we're good.
Yeah, right.
And even so, we'll give it a few years and let it blow over. I mean, shit. Look at fucking James Gunn.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Anywho.
But yeah, I mean, Keanu Reeves is a fantastic actor. And again, it's just having him be in the things, like being in the right things. And so this movie, the unsung heroes in this movie are all of the historical figures, because they all do a great job.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And who knows if they're historically accurate to the people.
I would put real hard green money on the fact that they're not.
Yeah. 100%. So
I'm
crazy.
guessing Napoleon Bonaparte wasn't a big ice cream and water parks guy.
Yeah, probably.
Just saying.
Probably.
You know what the most accurate probably depiction was? Right before they capture him, the Genghis Khan bit, where he's getting he's getting a platter of meat delivered. He grabs a meat on a bone, like basically a turkey leg, starts gnawing on it, and then grabs a woman and basically is about to start humping her before he's grabbed. It's like, that's probably as close to historically accurate as we could fucking get.
100%. 100%.
The rest of it,
yeah. Billy the Kid, you know what I mean? Like, all of them.
It was a fun scene. Bill and Ted do a Western. It was a fun bit, you know, but I don't know. I mean, it's not hard to do. It's like, oh, go to a saloon, have a drink, play some poker, get accused of cheating, start a bar fight.
Yeah.
Westerns.
I always find that to be so funny because it's like, it's Western bar fights and food fights in a cafeteria.
Yep.
It always is like one person starts something and then people off in the corner just start brawling. And it's just like, how is everybody tied to each other this way?
More importantly, was everyone on edge in this bar?
Everybody.
Like, it's like, because normally a fight breaks out and everyone just kind of either sits there and watches or runs or backs away slowly. I'm not thinking like, oh, those guys are fighting. Let me grab the nearest person and punch them in the mouth.
Right. Right. Why am I fighting this person? That doesn't make sense at all. But the music reference...
The hooker jumped off the balcony and swung through a window. Although, I will say, Bill and Ted's response to it was exactly what I was thinking. Excellent. That's what I was hoping was going to happen when she was up there and there was a rope in front of her.
Yeah, right. Oh, it's so funny. They get put through the wall and there's all the women, like, just changing.
and Ted kind of ducks back. Ted, sneaky ladies man. You don't pick that up until you do a couple of rewatches of this. That it's like, oh yeah, Ted was more the ladies man in this, and they even make reference to it a couple times, like, oh, you're good with the women, use your lines, and it's like, what?
Yeah, what? Yeah, it's because it's Keanu.
Of course it is.
Duh.
Of course it is.
Duh. Say, give my love to the princesses. Who? You'll see.
I love the reverse of that scene.
Yes.
So when originally when they meet George Carlin's Rufus at the Circle K, and they come down and they have a little conversation with themselves. The first time we see it, okay, that made as much sense as I think it could make.
Right.
The second time, we get the other side of it and realize that they were having a hell of a time. It was a mess, and literally they get back into the booth and go, that conversation made less sense than the first time.
Yeah, right.
Because they just kept fucking up. It's like, you didn't set your watch. Oh, yeah, let me remind myself to set my watch.
Yeah, right.
They are just in some kind of time loop.
Oh, man, it's so fun. It was...
Again, watching it again, I'm like, because watching that first scene where they meet Rufus and then they meet their other us's, which I love the terminology, the other us's.
Yeah.
It's like, these guys are just dumb enough to not question any of this.
Yes, and
like, that's what I love about these two characters. It's like, anyone else that wasn't flunking history would be like, a fucking phone booth just dropped out of the sky, and what is going on with this guy?
Yeah, well, because we don't talk about it because it's still the late 80s and we still can't talk about it because the war on drugs. But it's just like, they're just a little high the whole time. You know what I mean? Like, we can't talk about it because it's supposed to be a kid's movie. Kind of.
Right.
It's a family movie.
It's PG,
but it's just like, yeah, it's like these two have been ripping bongs the entire time. And we'll get to the big reveal at the end of the movie, which is hilarious. But it's like, even down to that, it's just like, yeah, you're just a couple of stoner burnout assholes. Like,
who think you're going to get Eddie Van Halen in your band because you made a sweet music video on your fucking big ass VHS camcorder where you're passing it off to each other and can't even get your names right.
Yeah, right. And you're blowing up your garage. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, it's fantastic. Also, your entire idea for your history presentation is, we're going to kidnap these people, not like go and interview them and then come back and do the presentation. We're just going to bring them, like, and kidnap them.
Well, the history project, okay, is, I'm saying this falls on the teacher a little bit because the history project is kind of dumb in its premise.
Oh, it is.
It's your history project is an oral presentation on what you think historical figures would think of San Dimas current day.
Yes.
What the fuck does that even mean?
Oh, 100%. Well, and it's
what would they would think of this? Like the only one that seems to do it right is the goddamn football player. It's like
right.
They would think it's pretty cool. San Dimas High School football rules. It's like, yeah, that's exactly like
right.
What do you think they would think? It's a shithole? I don't think so.
It's still in that. Sweet. It's still in that 80s, like that 80s American exceptionalism.
Details really don't matter.
Yeah, but it falls into that idea. It's like the same thing about like those pompous assholes that, you know, because this was definitely an 80s thing. If it was before that, I don't know, but definitely an 80s thing with the time capsule, the idea of a time capsule where it's like we're going to put in all of these artifacts that show who we are as people so people in the future can see who we are. And it's just like, oh, that's a big crock of shit because who cares? Like, you know what I mean? Like, who cares?
Well, little did we know there would be this time capsule called the internet where we could just look everything up and get mostly wrong answers back.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, get mostly wrong answers. And even if you get a right answer, there's 15,000 people telling you you're an asshole for getting the right answer.
Yes. It's like you used to, like, God, I don't even want to go down this rabbit hole, but it's like you used to be able to Google things and get actual answers. Now you get 50 opinions and most of them are calling you a dick.
Yeah, right. Right. 50 reasons why you're a dick for liking mayonnaise. It's just like, oh, I didn't even like mayonnaise that much.
Honestly,
I don't.
At this point, the only thing Google is good for is fucking spell check.
It is. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Like,
you can't like anybody. Like,
No.
God help you if you appreciate Hulk Hogan.
Except for, Keanu Reeves.
Oh, Keanu Reeves is the best person alive. He's also the only person.
Seen the pictures where he like the hover hand thing.
Yep. Yeah, he doesn't touch female people that he takes pictures with.
Yeah. So not only like he's been doing that forever. Like there's pictures of him like from the 90s doing that shit. Like this wasn't like, oh shit, cancel culture is gonna come and get me if I touch women. No, it's like he was old school fucking respectful.
Yeah. Keanu Reeves is the best man alive. Like I've been on this. I built the bandwagon. Like I built it.
I mean, Jesus, like I said, there is a Keanu verse based around this show.
Right. But it's just like, yeah, that guy is the best man. Like he's like everybody canceled him because they were like, oh, he's such a bad actor. Oh, he's such a bad actor. And then the internet found out how wonderful he is. Right. And they were just like, oh, he's amazing.
Yeah. And then, and again, John Wick.
Yeah. John Wick. I can't wait for Keanu Day. I don't know when it's going to happen now because, COVID. But
so that was supposed to be John Wick 4 and Matrix 4 on the same day, right?
Correct.
And that was supposed to be, was it supposed to be this year or next year?
It was supposed to be 2021. It was supposed to be spring 2021.
All right. So theoretically, we could get it next summer. I mean, has it been filmed? I don't even know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I would assume if they had that date, and they're two pretty major action movies, and it's not like John Wick 4 and 5. It's not like he's filming these two together. It's like they're separate companies.
Well, he is filming 4 and 5.
Yeah, well, he's filming those two together, so technically he's doing what, 3 movies?
3 movies,
and 2 of them are getting released on the same day, theoretically. Hey,
I would also
Hope. We need some good news. We need some good days ahead.
I don't know what Matrix 4 is going to be.
I don't know.
Like it just.
I'll be honest. I'm not a Matrix fan.
Yeah, I really like Matrix. The first Matrix is groundbreaking, right? It makes action. It like sets the pace for action movies in post 2000. Like is basically what happens. It like sets that bar, kind of integrates special effects in a way that hadn't been done before, and it is one of those tentpole movies in cinema. Matrix 2, I really enjoy because it's more of a kung fu movie, and I really like kung fu movies.
Sure.
And then Matrix 3, I don't like it. I can't stand it.
Which is weird because they filmed those 2 and 3 back to back as well.
The problem with Matrix 2 and 3, and more specifically 3, is it has the same problem that I have with Lost, the show Lost, where you have that first movie and it's so groundbreaking and there's so many questions and fans really start to dive into like the little minute meaning of everything and like really start English classing every frame up where it's just like, oh, and then the one curtain on the right side, it moved in a like lateral pattern, but the curtain on the left side moved in a vertical pattern, and that means blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? It's just like, holy crap. Like, I don't think that they thought that much into the movie. But so you have a bunch of internet theories, and then the Wachowskis just went, yes to all of it. Yes. And then they tried to shoehorn all of these religious allegories and like all of these English essays that were found all over the internet into Matrix 3. And it's just like, oh, this is a convoluted mess. It's a convoluted mess.
I'm glad I'm not a huge fan of them.
Yeah. And here's the thing, spoiler, but it's the fucking Matrix, and you know, it's
20 years old. Yeah.
It's a 20-year-old movie. You should have seen it at this point. But it's like everybody dies.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so Keanu, like Neo, is the only character that is supposed to be like he was born in the Matrix. So you can bring Neo back. That's easy. He's just born back into the Matrix again, and yay, he's back. Trinity is a person, and she done died.
She done did dadded.
She done did died. So I don't know how you bring back that real person. Unless you're going to be like, oh, she actually didn't die and we machine resurrected her. Also, who's the bad guy at the end of this? Because the machines and like Neo come to like this understanding at the end. Like, it's just like, what's the plot of 4? Look, I'm here for it because Keanu is going to be in it, and there's going to be Kung Fu and Lawrence Fishburne. But you know what? Lawrence Fishburne and Keanu are going to kick a bunch of ass in John Wick 4. So,
Jesus, yeah. You know, all this time I never put that together. He was also in the Matrix with. Again, I think I've watched. I don't think I've even seen 3, to be honest with you. I think I've definitely watched 1 once. Maybe I've seen 2.
Yeah,
maybe. I don't know, but yeah. John Wick, much better. I'll definitely go to see that one. I'll go see John Wick 4 without even thinking twice about it.
Oh yeah. I mean, look, here's the deal. I have all of the subscription services. So so it's like it says a lot if you're questioning going to the movies at this point. Yeah.
It says a lot about the quality of the movie.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I haven't seen Tenet and New Mutants yet. So
yeah.
What's up with those movies? One is
honestly, I don't know.
One is absolute garbage, and that's and then the other one is Tenet.
Didn't New Mutants
has
filmed that like 10 years ago?
Yeah, New Mutants has been done since 2018, and it's been
holy shit.
And they've been tinkering and re-releasing and tweaking, and so Disney bought it because it came.
I was going to say, is that a Marvel or is it a Fox Marvel?
It's Fox Marvel. Okay. It's technically an X-Men movie.
Okay. So they kind of just dumped that because they had it.
Right. Well, the thing is that I think that they were just trying to get everything off the books from the X-Men movies that they had. So it was just like, oh, this movie's been done. We're going to
release it, but it's not canon.
Right. This isn't MCU. It's the last, it's the last Fox X-Men movie. And then now we can, cherry pick and we can move, because you look at a lot of the people that are in it. It's Arya Stark. She's in it. I forget the actress's name. And Steven from Stranger Things, the older brother. And so those two, at the height of Stranger Things and Game of Thrones, made this movie. So in theory, this movie should have had like crazy star power in 2018 with those two. But yeah, the movie's garbage.
Nope. What's not garbage? Bill and Ted.
Bill and Ted.
Bill and Ted.
I love when they just drop off all of the historical figures at the mall, because they are like, hey, we just have
every week. Sons of Anarchy, man.
Sons of Anarchy. Yeah, that's where I live.
They love us.
They do.
Well, that was technically their project. That was their way of fulfilling their project because they dropped them off and said, "Okay, here's some slushies. Go experience San Dimas. This is the mall where we hang out." They were actually like. We looked at it like, oh, they're just taking historical figures to the mall because shenanigans are going to ensue.
Right.
But that was the movie's way of them actually doing their report because the report was already based in a dumb premise with you need to have historical figures tell us what they think of our town, which is also very egotistical.
Yeah. All we have is a mall, so we dropped them off at the mall.
It's a pretty sweet mall. They also have the biggest water park on the Western Hemisphere, apparently, or something. Shit. I don't know. But I mean, the mall is an ice rink.
Yeah.
Jesus. Besides this and Dawn of the Dead, I've never seen a mall with an ice rink.
Very Midwestern.
Actually, Montreal. I went to Montreal, but that's fucking Canada. Of course, they have an ice rink.
Yeah, they have an ice rink. They have an ice rink at the DMV. What are you talking about?
It's a skate through.
Yeah. What are you talking about? It's Canada. So, but yeah, shenanigans ensues, and it's so funny. I love the music is perfect.
Yep.
And
especially since they have Beethoven fucking rocking out on 6 different synthesizers.
Yeah, it's so great. He's the only one that I don't understand why they arrested. Like, I understand why Genghis Khan, like, he's destroying mannequins at the mall. Well, you know what I mean? With like a baseball bat. It's like, yeah, okay, we're going to arrest that guy. And like the confusion with Lincoln, where it's just like, hey, give us the Lincoln costume. And he's just like, no, I am Lincoln. You know, so that makes sense. But it's like, this guy is just at the keyboard store just rocking out, and everybody is like hanging out, like looking at him play.
I'm going to pull back the curtain here and break the fourth wall because I did mall security for many years. None of these people would have been arrested. And
yeah.
Honestly, mall security probably might have said stop to Genghis Khan, maybe.
Yeah, right.
Like, hey, buddy, knock it off or buy it.
Yeah, right.
Or just, can you leave? Like, there's no way. They wouldn't even the guy at the Genghis Khan store. No, you're not radioing for backup. You're fucking off and taking your lunch break. That's exactly what's happening. There's a guy with a bat, and he's beating the living shit out of this mannequin. I am taking 15. I
don't get paid enough.
Seriously.
Yeah, but it's just...
But there's definitely no arresting powers in mall security. And there's definitely no cops in the mall. That's not even at least there never was.
Yeah, right.
Like,
well, they definitely called the cops.
Real fucking crime to get the cops there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because the Beethoven one out of all of them is the one that doesn't really make sense to me. You know, just because it was just like...
A lot of them, like... Did the guy... Okay, let's go with the Lincoln guy. Did he not see him walk in and ask to have his picture taken?
Yeah, right. You're an
I'm
idiot.
sorry. You want the Lincoln hat and beer back? Did you give it to him? How else? Let's nitpick. If we're gonna nitpick, let's fucking nitpick. Yeah. This scene is bullshit.
Oh yeah, 100%. Because it's like, you look at it and it's like, yeah, you didn't watch the Lincoln guy walk into the thing. Also, check your thing. Where's your Lincoln thing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where's your shit?
You would have had to give it to him to ask for it back.
Right.
I don't think it's one of those self-service photo booth things where you actually have to go pick your own shit. Also, Socrates, Billy the Kid, and fucking Freud fucking hitting on the women.
Yeah, right.
hitting on the teenage girls.
Yeah, right. They're just creepy, so there's nothing wrong with them there. Joan of Arc just assaulting the Jazzercise class.
Yeah, she hijacked Jazzercise.
Yeah.
As someone who has hijacked many a New Age Insider show, I get it.
True.
Step aside, I got this.
No, the only real crimes that were committed was Genghis Khan assaulting that mannequin that you could have potentially called the police on. Yeah. And then Billy the Kid firing a gun.
That did happen.
You know what I mean? Like, those are the only two.
He did just fucking fire a gun. Although I will say, I watching it back, the people, the customers and the employees did act appropriately. Everyone hit the fucking deck when that gun went off.
Oh yeah.
Because normally you think, okay, this is a fun comedy movie. He's gonna fire a gun and woohoo, because that's what he did in his day. You'd win a hand of cards and you start firing off a gun. That's what you did in the Old West. At least that's what movies tell us.
Yeah, that's what I'm told.
So like if you're watching it, you're like, oh, everyone's gonna, nobody's gonna react to it. But at least watching it again for the 47th time, you start to notice the background actors, and it's like, oh, they're all hitting the fucking deck as if someone, as like a terrorist is taking over them all. It's like, okay, good on the background. I like that. So they all get fucking arrested,
right?
And because we need that exposition where Bill and Ted have to explain that they can go back in time after their report and fix all the problems that they have.
Right.
How do we get the keys? How do we duck? How do we lose my dad? How do we do this? How do we get a trash can with our band's name fucking painted on it?
Right.
Hot tub time machine, baby. That's how we do it.
Oh, yeah. It's absolutely fantastic. Because, it's also so funny because the whole thing is they're supposed to like succeed in passing this history exam, and that's what ends up happening.
Right.
But his dad already told him that, after school tomorrow,
he's signed up for Alaskan military school.
Yeah, like you're going.
The plane leaves tomorrow. Again, Ted's dad's an asshole.
Oh, he's an absolute dick.
Literally, he's an asshole up until he goes to hell in the third one. Spoiler alert.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like, and that's like 40 years of being a dick to your kid. And it's like, I don't really know why. Like, I get it. You got a slacker kid. But like, he told him he could pass his history test. And then if he fails history, which again, one fucking test and you're done, kid.
Yeah.
There is summer school after all. Again, too much reality for this silly movie.
Well, especially because, like, this is the end of, like, it's summer vacation. Like, even military schools, like, don't...
They have summer vacation.
They have summer vacation.
Also, it's like when we finally get to the presentation and the dads show up and okay, I get it. Ted's dad is blaming Bill to Bill's dad, but they get in there and they see that their kids are, I don't know, I wouldn't say doing their homework, but fuck me, that stage presentation is awesome. And Bill's dad and Missy are all into it, and Ted's dad's still sitting there through the whole goddamn thing, even at the very end, where even the fucking teacher who was the dean in Revenge of the Nerds, he's clapping. Everyone's clapping. Everybody's going batshit. The crowd's chanting for an encore, and Ted's dad's sitting there with a stick up his ass, being like,
"Yeah, cool.
Wasted my deposit on military school. I guess the motherfucker's still going."
Right. Well, and that's the part that they never like talk about in the sequel, where it's like,
how do you get out of military school?
How do you get out of military school? But also, like, Colonel Oates? I forget the name, but they go
I thought Oates was the place. I thought it was Oates, Alaska. I thought it was like a town in Alaska.
Right,
because it's Oates military. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, but there's in Bogus Journey when they go to hell, they're like living hell nightmare memories.
Right,
it's what's happening, and one of them is Ted's military school.
So maybe he did go.
So did he send him to military school anyway?
Also, what grade are they in?
Right.
Because they keep referencing the fact, even in the third one, that they both asked Missy to prom when they were freshmen and she was a senior, meaning and someone said it, and I think in the third one, I think they clear up that Missy timeline. Is it Missy or Misty?
Missy,
okay. I think they clear up the Missy timeline at least. Yeah, mom. But it doesn't make sense where they are in school, because
so
are they can't be seniors, they have to be juniors. They can't be sophomores, because it took Missy, I think, 2 years to marry their dad after they were freshmen. That would put them in, if they just got married, that would put them as juniors at the least.
Right. Yeah.
Which is the only thing that really makes sense. But are you really going to send your kid to military school for 1 year? Again, I'm not a parent. I don't got a dog in the race. But
yeah, right.
Really?
It's just a weird thing, because it's like they did everything right, but then in Bogus Journey, he went to military school, like, in that nightmare, like, memory thing.
Maybe he did go for senior year. Maybe. I guess maybe his dad stuck to his guns. Yeah,
but then he did. And again, this is the split. This is the split with the Keanu verse.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because if he goes to military school, that's where we get John Downey.
He was a trained assassin. Little did he know.
Yeah,
Ted turned into Jandani.
Yeah, because
Baba Yaga.
Yeah, he turned into the Baba Yaga. Oh, Christ. How has nobody made a fan film of what happened with the fucking pencil?
It's up to you, man.
I guess it's up.
They're leaving it up to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
The rights have been virtually secured.
Yeah. So I'm gonna have the Baba Yaga kill everybody with a goddamn pencil.
Yeah. So they show up to school. Apparently the light show is all ready to go. Choreography's all set. They got everything they need. They got the stage. They got everything cool. Billy the Kid, Socrates, Sigmund Freud, Genghis Khan, Joan of Arc, Abraham Lincoln, and Ludwig von Beethoven all do their parts. Right. Bill and Ted do their parts. Nobody really talks anything about San Dimas. They all just kind of
talk about who they are.
Here's the thing.
The presentation.
Here's what I picked up on this recent rewatch. Clearly, the writers are massive Disney World fans.
Oh, yeah. It's referenced a million times.
Not only did they reference, like, in the Abraham Lincoln thing, or they were talking about George Washington at the time.
Yeah.
And then when they get to the Old West, they talk about Frontierland.
Yep. Except
you can get shot in this one. But they literally created Hall of Presidents for their final project.
Yes, they did.
With stories of Mr. Lincoln, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, moments with Mr. Lincoln.
Moments with Mr. Lincoln. Like they literally created their Hall of Presidents for their final project. So
they reference Hall of Presidents.
They reference the Hall of Presidents as well.
So that's to the Hall of Presidents.
The Hall of Presidents. Yeah. You ever make a mushroom out of his head? I love how dumb they are.
Yeah,
it's like they're the perfect amount. They're not fully dumb. They're just dumb enough.
Right.
Or if we read between the lines, they're just high enough.
They're just high enough. They're just a little high.
Yeah. So they pass history, which was of major importance. Yeah. Apparently they take everyone back to their homes. They returned all the Infinity Stones, and we never saw it. And
nobody ever talked about it in history ever again.
Yeah, and they're back in their garage, and they're trying to make that video where we first saw them. And Ted has that moment where he's like, "Oh, nothing's changed. We're back here doing the same shit." And then, of course, Rufus shows up with the two women he abducted in the past.
Yeah, the babes.
Let's be quite honest.
Oh yeah, yes.
These women had families. They are now looking for them.
Right. And they were princesses too. They were people of very significant importance.
And we learned that Bill, Ted, the princesses, they can't play a lick, but apparently Rufus is Eddie Van Halen.
Oh, yeah. It's also really funny because that's the reveal of the movie. The reveal of the movie is, he's like, "Hey, I just want to jam with you guys." And they're garbage.
Yeah.
They're all garbage. And he just looks at the camera and goes, "They get better."
It's like, what? This movie, Bill and Ted, yada, yada.
Yeah. Bill and Ted, whatever. Whatever.
Wonderful. It is wonderful.
But I love this movie, and it's fantastic.
Yeah. So that is 1989's Bill and Ted's excellent adventure. Normally, this is where we would tell you what's coming up next week. We haven't discussed it, but coming up tomorrow.
Yes.
Tomorrow here on That Movie
I
Show.
I love you tomorrow. That's right. We're doing Annie.
It's going to be a great, big, beautiful tomorrow because we're doing Bill and Ted Face the Music bonus episode tomorrow. 2 days of Bill and Ted on That Movie Show. Of course, as usual, follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/thatmovieshowtv. Myself and Eddie on all forms of social media at Mike Wendt, at the Eddie McCabe. And you can subscribe to the audio podcast on literally any podcast. So your favorite podcasting app, wherever you listen to podcasts, type in That Movie Show, hit the subscribe, hit the favorite, hit the like button, hit the review button, whatever. Tell your friends. And that's the most important thing. And we will see you back here tomorrow for Bill and Ted Face the Music.
Bye, everybody.
That's Hooey Valley, Hooey Hollywood, where any office boy or young mechanic